Hey everyone, welcome to Gizmos. So Gizmos is a place where students can do online science lab simulations. This company has started to create a lot more of these since schools have gone online. And today is the first time that we actually get to try it out. So before I actually tell you how to do the lab that we're going to do, which is called mineral identification, I'm going to explain to you how you should be getting logged in. So on the Schoology page, you're going to have a link to get to the Gizmo lab. This side over here is the Gizmo lab itself. When you click on that link, you're first going to have to log in. So in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see where it says log in. If you click on that button, you'll be able to put in the class code. And in Schoology, you can find what the class code for your class is. Once you put in your class code, then you're going to have to actually create your account. So you can type in a username and a password, and this username and password can be anything that you want it to be, as long as it's something that you will remember. So as the year continues, we're going to come back to Gizmos and do several different simulations. And so it's really important that you write down your login information, so your username and your password, or you record it in a place where you can refer back to it. But please, please, please remember your username and your password. Once you type that in, you can actually get logged into our course, which is 8th grade Earth and Space Science. And your homepage, you'll be able to see where it says mineral identification. And that's the name of this simulation that we're going to do today. When you see the mineral identification simulation, you'll actually see this word launch in the corner, and you can click on launch, and that should bring you to this page here. The other thing that you're going to need to have up is the Gizmos lab report, which is actually what you see on this side of my screen. And this one is just a PDF that's linked right in Schoology. So you can pull this one up fairly easily. This one you have to get logged into first. So once you have both of these pulled up side by side, then you can actually start going through the simulation itself. When you go through the simulation, if you just read the directions, it's going to be really clear on what to do. If you skip some of the directions, though, it will be really confusing. So take the time to actually sit down and read carefully through the directions. What you'll notice on top is it has some key vocabulary words. So these are kind of the things that you'll learn about as you go through the lab today. And then the first section is stuff that you should do before using the gizmo. So think back to last week when we were doing the mineral identification lab in class, and try to answer these questions just before you even start the simulation. This part here, it talks you through finding the density. So if you remember back to last week when we were trying to identify our minerals, we didn't find the mass and the volume. So we didn't have a scale and we didn't use a graduated cylinder to find the mass and volume of our minerals. We just measured density based on heft. And so if it was heavier than we expected, we said that it had high heft. If it was lighter than we expected when we picked it up, we said it had low heft. And if it was about what we expected, we said it was average. In this simulation, you're actually going to calculate the density. So if you pull up a calculator, that will be the easiest way to find this. And so you actually, when you're finding the mass, if you come over here to the gizmo itself, you can choose the property to test. And so if we want to test the density, you can click and drag the mineral to the scale, and then you'll record the mass of this mineral. And so that one would be right here in grams. Then if you drag and drop it into the graduated cylinder, you can calculate the volume. And how you do that, you need to do a subtraction problem. So you would figure out how much is it before the minerals in there. It's at 40. And then how much is there after the minerals in there? And then you would take this number minus 40, and that gives you the volume of the mineral. And then if you remember, it tells you right here how to find the density. You actually have to do a division problem. So you take the mass divided by the volume, and that will give you your density. So calculators are recommended, but you do actually have to calculate the density in this simulation. And so this part here is just walking you through that process. If you scroll down to the second page of the lab report, this is actually where you're going to identify your first mineral. And if you look in the gizmo, it tells you what sample you're doing right here. So we are currently on sample A. So if let's take this back out. We're currently on sample A. Then all you really have to do is really read through the directions and complete the steps one by one. And then at the end, you'll be able to figure out what sample A is. And over here, choose the property to test. You start with appearance. And this is kind of where you can record that stuff. You'll go down to density. Oops. Right there. And like it said, you'll have to calculate that. For sample A, you can actually just look right here because you would have already done that one. The hardness, if you click on hardness, this one, you just kind of click and you drag it over each piece. So like that one, it scratched the fingernail. This one, it scratched the penny. Oops. This one, it looks like it's scratching the glass. And remember, if it scratches the glass, or any of these things for that matter, it means that it's harder than that thing. So this mineral, it looks like it's scratching the steel plate. So that means it has a hardness of 6.5 and harder, right? So you could even say maybe like 7 to 10 would be your range. And then if you go down, the next thing you're going to test is streak. And here, this is really important. You want to record the color of the streak, and then just to take kind of a note, where does it say it? Note, if the mineral is harder than the streak plate, about 6.5, it won't leave a streak. So this one, we just said, based on our hardness, that it was 6.5, right, or harder. And so it makes sense that when we're trying to see what color streak it would leave behind, that it wouldn't leave any streak. So you can actually just write no streak for this one. For a lot of them, you'll write a color down. And then lastly, for the acid, you actually want to drop some of it on there and then observe what happens. Then when you want to decide what is this mineral that we have all this information about, you can scroll down to this last page and you can actually figure out what your mineral is. And it's broken up. So here we have the metallic minerals, so the ones that look like metals. Here we have non-metallic metals that are mostly dark. And here we have non-metallic minerals that are mostly light. And so you can figure out what your mineral is, and then you can type it in here to see if you're correct or not. And something to take note of is, like, let's say I'm going to guess that this is calcite. If I put a space at the end of calcite, it will always tell me that it's wrong. Even if calcite is the mineral that it is, if you add that space or multiple spaces, it will mark it as wrong. So be sure that you just have the mineral name typed in, and then you can press submit and see if you're right. This one is not calcite, and so it says incorrect. Then you can click on where it says show your score, and it will tell you how many you have guessed that are correct or incorrect. And so honestly, if you just go down the list and you wait until you get it correct, I'm going to know that you didn't actually go through the steps. You just were taking random guesses, because every guess will show up here. So if you don't get it on your first try, that's understandable. This is a hard task. But if it takes you 10 tries, then you're not critically thinking about it, and that would be pretty clear. So then getting down to part B, this is where it is really, really similar to what we did in class. You're going to switch to your next samples. Let's go to appearance again. And you can just click next in order to go through your different samples here. And when you are, so then when you figure out the information, you can just put it into your table here, and you can use the key down here to figure out what it is. And for this one, you should just write down what was your first try, and then what was the actual name, and then either yes or no, did you get it on your first try or not? And then once you're all finished with that, you can submit this to the Dropbox, and you're done for the day. If you have any questions at all, please give me a Schoology message. But I think that it should be pretty straightforward if you read through the directions. So Have fun with it. Schoology message if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.